Hey folks, we're back. Thanks a lot to everyone that reached out and said hey and cared for me while I was in the hospital. I got a leg infection from a cut, and I'm still repairing, and I need a lot of rest. So I can manage about an hour or so today. So that's what we're going to do. Give me a second here for me to check my signal, and then I'll do my intro spiel, and then we'll get to work. Then so I'll do Holy Hannah, that's super loud. I am so sorry. Let me bring that down to a reasonable volume. There we go. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to go through my intro spiel here real quick, and then we'll get to work. So, hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing game supplements. I publish them online. I've been focusing my attention lately on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition supplemental rules. I publish them on the DMsGuild. There's a slew of links in the description down below to various works that I've already published before, and they're all like 90% plus previews. So, what's the word I'm trying to use? It's yeah, check it out. what I'm trying to say is check it out and see what I got going on. If you since there's a lot of preview, if you're a D&D player, you might think some of the stuff is cool. If you do, consider making a purchase to support more efforts like this. If you're just here for the art, then there's probably about 150 different illustrations that I created throughout the different works that are linked down below, and they're all in the preview PDF. So you can check out the stuff, and if you think it's cool, stick around, say hi. Otherwise, a great way to support the stream is if you're still on Twitter, you can follow me there at Phil Kearney. Otherwise, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon here on YouTube to further grow the channel. So we picked up a couple subscribers while I was in the hospital, so God bless all of you people. I appreciate people helping out, supporting the channel, and sending their love, so thank you. I should be on at least an hour moving forward as usual. This is the book cover that we created back around episode 15 of this stream. We're apparently up to episode 197 now. We have the full 108-page document as a Word file that we've been editing the page layouts to. And here's an example of one of the pages of magic items that are in the book. Currently, you can see I've crossed out some of the language there because as we go through this process of page by page editing and layouts and illustrations, we can actually just keep an eye on the text, and if anything rubs us the wrong way, since I do all of it, I can just change it. So big shout out to Adam Hancock for helping editing the work to make sure the words made sense, even though I have to continue editing and updating it myself as just I find better ways of expressing stuff. Adam has been an incredible ally in helping make sure that just the language stays consistent and that I have a smart way of being able to present this stuff so people can digest it easily. So today we're looking at the Necklace of Fresh Air. In the actual source book, Spelljammer's Adventures in Space, there was a second level spell introduced called Air Bubble. That I think has an 8 hour, I don't know, maybe it's an hour, 8 hour, I don't remember what the duration is, but this Necklace of Fresh Air item is while you wear the necklace, you benefit from the effects of the Air Bubble spell as described in SAIS perpetually. So it's always active. You'll always have air. If you get kicked off your ship and dumped into the void, you'll still be able to breathe, no problem. Here we are depicting Princess Zedalia from the Light of Zarax's adventure. We've been using her as a reference image because why wouldn't she have one of those? It just makes sense. So why not just reference stuff that we're making use of? So what I'm doing right now is I am just editing, or rather I am working out the smoothing the details of her clothing, blending in the line art into the color. You can check the previous episodes to see how we created the line art and and how we dropped in the color underneath it like a comic book, and now that we've merged the color layer with the top line art, we can smooth it all together. And it's I was supposed to be done by now, but of course I couldn't expect to get sick all of a sudden. So this weekend was supposed to have been spent finishing this piece, the other piece that's on this page for the Ori scanning system image, as well as the air bubble size chart that we have for ships and creatures, and the barbarian ship pilot illustration that's at the beginning of the chapter. Those were all supposed to be done from Thursday through Saturday, and today was supposed to be spent at least a few hours in starting to do sketches throughout the combat chapter. But of course, God had a bigger plan. I had to take a couple of days off my feet while the staff got flushed out of my body by IVs, and God bless the UW medical team for really knowing what they were doing and having just great care for me. So I'm going to set a timer here, 20-minute block, so that at the end of the third block at an hour I can drop out and get some rest. So we're just going to continue on keeping on. If you show up in the chat, hey, thanks a lot for being here. I'm supposed to be here. Here's what my schedule typically is, and as I continue to heal, I'll be able to actually perform these dates as advertised. So on a weekly basis, Monday through Friday in the morning for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, maybe about 100 minutes, I do Spelljammer art like this. And then in the evenings on Mondays and Thursdays, I do Eberron artwork and maps and token production for the adventure that myself, Stuart Braz, and Andy Healy had created that will also publish on the DMsGuild. Stuart is working on the edits currently. Andy was a co-writer, and so the adventure is written, but we're still waiting for Stuart to hash out all of our word salad into sensible structure. Once he's finished, I can then start doing page layouts. I expect to be doing that once this Spelljammer book is published. But for now, on Mondays and Thursday nights, the schedule is for me to create the maps and ship and creature tokens and character tokens for the different locations in the adventure, so that when the content is ready for page layouts, we'll have all those assets ready to go for us to start cutting up and dropping into the pages that actually talk about what's going on in the map on those pages. So it's adventures are the most complicated product to produce in an RPG supplement, because it's both a story as well as a game. So you have to be able to give attention to all of the processes that the game requires to gamify it, but it's also a story, or at least there's plot points that are happening with it that are generally portrayed as a story, that your characters are changing with their decisions, like choose your own adventures. So you have to have all the content in there to be able to describe the motives and actions of the characters and creatures that the players will encounter during the course of the adventure. And then on top of it, not only is it mechanics and stuff that you have to describe in like sequences of events and actions during combat, but you also have to have the visual maps for characters for the DM to know how to properly depict what the characters are encountering during these combat and adventure scenarios. So it's a very in-depth project, and it takes a lot more work than just a character supplement or optional rules. It really pushes the limits of what I think is just the design workflow. So it's my first published official adventure, and my first officially published adventure using the Eberron setting, which is also a Wizards of the Coast IP, which is therefore also to be published on the DMsGuild. And all of my work has massive previews, so you can always know that what you're getting is good, and that you can even reference if you don't buy it as just a utility resource. But obviously, people that purchased help encourage me to continue making more works like this, similar to all the stuff that's linked down below. So that's my Mondays and Thursday nights right now. And then Saturday morning, I do private commissions and personal work. I've got a new Abyss-themed adventure that I've been commissioned to do a half page for the book cover by co-writer Andy Headley, the old goat, as well as good friend and confidant Brian Holmes. He's the editor of that project, so it's great to be able to support and work with both of those with the commission. So I believe we'll be starting that this weekend on Saturday. And then I also have on Tuesdays at lunchtime, I have a mechanics development stream. I've been building an alternate magic system for martial characters to answer the question, like, how do martials catch up to casters in D&D? I believe the answer is give them a resource pool and give them a selection of feat-like things they can do. I mean, let's be serious. Spells are just really, really good feats that you can pick on a daily basis. So, like, feats are really shitty spells. Like a first or second, at best, second level spell, most likely a first level or even just a cantrip. So fighters and martials get a couple cantrips or maybe like a couple low, like first-ish level spell type things that they can use at will. But that's about the cap of their power capacity, and it's insufficient compared to the stack of 89 spells, spell levels worth of resources that a wizard gets every day and gets to pick from their book. 22 unique magic feat-like powers that they can use as often as they have the resources to use them. And so we're providing a set of 140 unique magical powers and a resource pool for every martial character to not only be able to compete with the superior casting paradigm that's inside of 5e, but it also allows us to add color mana to all 13 classes. If you check the spell point variant rule bundle that I have down below, you'll see there's a lot of stuff about color mana because I'm a big MTG enthusiast, and I love having color mana represented in 5e with the mechanics that we built, but they're only for spellcasters. So we had to build an additional supplement to be able to create alternate mechanical magic systems for non-spellcasting martial characters to have something to do with color mana. Because in Magic the Gathering, if you have a deck of fighters and soldiers, they aren't spellcasters, but they can spend color mana to create effects, which was the inspiration of the book. That and a lot of other stuff that we talk about a lot. I'm actually going to be back on tomorrow to fulfill that date, and I wanted to do this last week, but we'll do it this week. It's the Path of the Giant Barbarian that came out with Big B's Glory of the Giants. There's a lot of stuff in our Martial Powers book already that exists that would complement the giant fantasy. And so what we do is we take existing subclasses that are in the published WotC books. We give them a list of unique powers by level, like, first, 5th, 9th, 13th, 17th level, like a paladin would get. And then we also readdress all the class features, subclass features that you gain for taking that subclass, and make sure that they work with the power system that we have, either leaving them alone or updating them or improving on them to make sure that they can make use of the options that we provide. So we will have the opportunity to do that tomorrow, probably around 1 o'clock Pacific time, like about now tomorrow. I'll be on rebuilding Path of the Giants to use the martial power system. And there's been a lot of debate about like what can like giantism in general, and characters being larger than medium size, and what does that mean mechanically, and what kind of benefits do they actually get. Well, we've already addressed all that stuff in our book, so we'll have an opportunity to revisit that content and then flesh it out and see how it, how it relates to to the giant subclass, which I'm really excited about. So I'm on 6 days a week, 9 different blocks of time. Again, I got to keep it really, really simple today because I still have, I need to stay off my feet a lot so that the infection can drain from my leg. But it's okay for me to be up for an hour, as long as, like, if I'm up 1 hour, I got to be down at least 2. And then, of course, I have a good solid 7 hours of sleep at night to keep my leg raised up, so that helps drain out all the poison from my leg. So that's coming along really well. But yeah, so this fabric that we're doing here for Zedalia, we're going with a silk sort of fabric, which is a high thread count, very glossy, low starch sort of fabric that requires me to spend a lot of time here doing blending. Of course, I have to pick the most difficult to fulfill content here because I can't do anything easily. If I was an AI cheat, I could have had this done 2 months ago. It would already be published, and I'd already be on to building like mammoth ships and like armadas, and there's a mecha supplement that I can build out of the rules that we have for fighter craft, and there's just so much cool shit we can do with this book once it's published. But I have to do it right because the whole point of the stream was to share the process of creating art and designing books. And I started this last year before AI became a real thing. But I'm obviously a handcraft artist, and I don't want to use AI. I started making books in the first place so I could justify the amount of time I spend on fantasy artwork. Now that AI is a thing, I'm not going to change my mind. I think more than ever, handcrafted art is important because computers are making it an option. Oops, my computer just locked up. The machine must be angry at me. So I have to wait for this to finish saving. I close out the document. I reopen it. So, let me get back to work. Adobe and OBS don't 100% get along. So the graphics card occasionally chokes a little bit. No, that's excruciating. There's not a lot of quarter pages in the book like this, like maybe 3 or 4. And like a couple half pages that were already done, but the rest of it's like 1/8 or smaller spot art. So a lot of it goes pretty quickly. These pages in particular just happen to have very large illustrations that take a while to build. There we go. That's better now. If I get some sleep this afternoon, I can come on and probably do Eberron character art for an hour. So I'm going to see if I can do that like maybe, I don't know, maybe 7 hours from now for an hour. Come on, buddy. You can tell I'm sick because all my line work is a little rough. There you go. Normally I can hit curbs real easy. I'm really choppy right now, so. I don't mind the added challenge. It's okay. There we go. I'm really sad that I made a New Year's resolution that by July 4th I would start hitting the gym every day. And as of July 4th, I've been hitting the gym every day. It's when I make a proclamation like that and then give myself 7 months to ramp into it, the amount of chaos magic that gets built behind the idea of it is pretty easy to be fulfilled. And I absolutely love pushing myself in the gym. And that is such a blessing. And I'm absolutely lamenting that I have to be off my feet and heal. I know that it's for the greater good to stick around on the planet longer, but I am lamenting not being able to, listen to the Doom soundtrack and just slam steel. It's fun. Absolutely, I love pressing, and I love biking. But I am legally blind. I have broken retinas, so I don't see color, and because I don't have any cones, and the cones also control image resolution. So I have a fixed resolution of everything that I look like. I only have one camera angle perspective, and I can only take a low resolution snapshot. Like a 72 DPI snapshot is all my eye can do. So if I want to see something, I literally have to either get closer to it or, like in this instance, make it big enough for me to be able to see the small details. Otherwise, I just can't make them out, which means that I can't drive. It also means I can't ride my bike quick down a mountain path or something because I can't see potholes or rocks. I've thrown myself over the handlebars a number of times as a kid, learning what limits I have of speed and image processing. So it's kind of forced me. My aggressive biking is pretty much limited to stationary bikes and calorie counting and like digital pulse keeping and stuff like that. But that's okay because it's just part of the process. It's just part of who I am. It makes me who I am. It gives me a lot of. I know I have literally a very unique perspective on the things that people see, and I don't see things at all the way that other people do, which is both a literal statement, but it's also kind of a philosophical stance. Like, I am constantly having to figure out, what do I need to do to make sure that I'm being taken care of, that I get what I need, that everyone else is just getting by default. Like, I have to ask or find all the information that most people just automatically get by glancing across the room, which forces me to be very outgoing and outspoken, being willing to embarrass myself by asking questions. Like, it was like asking girls out face to face at bars and stuff, like when I got into college, was ridiculously easy because I had already been humbling myself since 5, asking people for help with things that, a guy shouldn't have to ask people for help for. But I had to build a life where it was okay for me to be able to ask other people for help, and that just translates into just general bravery of not being embarrassed by having to ask, of being willing to ask questions of people. In the corporate world, I'm also that guy that always answers questions in meetings when no one is willing to raise their hand because they don't want to look dumb. I am more than happy to look dumb because most of the time I'll add humor to it and makes people laugh and feel safe. So management loves having me in their company because I build morale. That was actually a sales pitch to the last company that I worked with. Was why your stats look good, but why should we hire you? It's because I build morale. I'm like, why? It's like, and I explained all of this, and like, oh, okay. And I got the job. Like, that's a really unique answer. I don't think I've ever heard anyone even think about that sort of stuff. It's like, well, I have to think about that sort of stuff to live. So if we want you on your team, I'll start thinking that way for your company too. And I'm like, oh shit, okay. So I'm their marketing. I'm a marketing analyst now. I was a salesperson, but I'm in marketing now, and I basically do analysis for like lead generation and cost analysis involved with, what desks perform best, and like if a certain type of inquiry comes through, who's going to be most likely to be able to close a sale involved with that. Like, that's the kind of statistical analysis type work that I get to do. and I've got a mind for numbers, and I'm really good at recognizing patterns. Like I worked for Chase Bank in the early 2000s. I worked on their fraud prevention team. I was part of a group that was tracking HubSpot. Not HubSpot. It was GameStop. GameStop fraud using Chase credit cards from different organized crime syndicates in Europe and Asia. So it was our job to be able to identify these accounts as fast as possible before they would make, these gift card purchases and then use them to get product and then sell the product as bootlegs. That was the scheme that they were running, and they would hit GameSpot for $150,000, $300,000 a month worth of credit card fraud, ganking video games like Tour of Duty 1, like GoldenEye, 007, stuff like that, like early 2000s games, back to the old PS2 or whatever, the Xbox original. That's my first 20-minute marker. I'm going to take a sip of hot cocoa. I'm going to chase it with some water. Oh. But yeah, I've always been. I say always. At age 12, I got my first D&D books as part of my birthday. And I immediately fell in love with D&D, and I couldn't get anyone to DM it, so I immediately became a forever DM, and it wasn't until I got into college and found my tribe that there were other DMs that I was able to play for a number of years. But I learned a lot of do's and don'ts as a player during college, and at the end of that tenure, I became a forever DM again. And that's not true, because I moved to Arizona after college, and I found another great tribe, and I hung with them for like 7 years before moving to Seattle, and I got to be in a rotating group of DMs and players together, and we learned we pushed into the epic levels. When I moved, we were playing 3rd edition in the like 21st to 30th level bracket, and it was just, we were all comfortable with playing and DMing at that ridiculous god level, and it really changes your philosophy about like threats and like if a player can learn anything, it basically just forces the DM to become really good at improvisation. And once you get good at improvising, role-playing games are ridiculously easy. It doesn't even really matter what you're playing anymore. The players are the ones that really have, like, if you're playing a player-facing game where the players are doing most of the dice rolls, then the DM really doesn't even need to know what the rules are. You're just wheeling out ideas, and the players are dealing with it. But 5e is a non-symmetrical game where both DM and players roll dice. Hey, Dreams. It's good to see you, guy. And so 3rd edition epic levels is so far beyond what anything in 5th edition is. It's just the scale, the ridiculousness of abilities, damage, action economy in 3rd edition is so far more than what 5e does. If you get good, if you had the chance to get really good at DMing epic levels in 3rd edition, when 5e came around, it's like playing 14th to 18th level in 3rd edition. It's like, it's not a big problem. And being comfortable with saying yes but is like the ultimate skill for a DM. And when your characters are literal gods and they can do anything that they want, you get really good at creating word traps. And just the way that you devise plots is like, it's just very open-ended anyway. Like, once a character gets into the 3rd tier, like teen levels, this is true of 3rd edition as well as 5th edition. It was built into the machinery of 2nd, 1st, and BECMI. that once you get into double-digit levels, the characters are in charge. Like, they're the ones that are setting the pace of the adventures. They're the ones that are calling the shots. They're the ones that are creating the goals. And the DM kind of goes onto the back foot and starts reacting, just being reactionary. The players decide what thing they're going to change in the world, and the DM decides what exists in the multiverse already that's going to be pissed off with that decision, and how are they going to retaliate against the team. And then it just becomes a dynamo of rolling against like tits for tats and gotchas and vengeance, and just trying to outdo each other. And if a DM does it well, it's a non-confrontational experience, because the team is recognizing that the world is simply responding to the actions that they're trying to take. And so if you can build that mindset and have that be your default as a DM going into any campaign, it's really easy to build a unique experience that specifically revolves around the characters and resolves because of what they choose. The DM doesn't care. Like, none of us in our team, none of us cared at all about where these scenarios went. We just wanted to see the characters burn their abilities. Like, our goal was, if I can make you spend your entire cache of resources and make you beg for a long rest so you can get your shit back, that's a successful day of adventuring for a DM. And if you know that the schedule, that long rest cycle is going to not tax their resources, then plan the day that you have to challenge them as players, to create new puzzles or new opportunities to arrive that they have to contemplate and make a decision about, because you aren't going to be able to, you won't be able to exhaust them because they're not in high combat adventure mode. They are in contemplation and devising mode. So your job then is to create scenarios that make them question their own motives and, like, did we do the right thing? Maybe we should slow down for a minute and take an extra day or two and blow resources on doing recon and divinations to get as much information as we can about the scenario going in, so that we'll have a high success rate with a low loss count. And, like, that's, to me, that tactician strategizing approach of game that's my favorite. I love that aspect of gaming, where the players are legit concerned about the results of their actions, and they want to make sure they get it right because they know there's going to be consequences if they do it wrong. And if you're really good at having cause and effect and consequences to actions, then the players will respect the campaign more. And that's how you lock people in for a 20-level game. From level 1 to 20 campaign, that'll take a year and a half to complete. You get that emotional buy-in from them, because once they get a taste of how much their actions actually can impact the world, and that it really is like, I'll keep throwing shit at you all day, but it's just going to be whatever I think of. Whoever I think is going to be pissed off at whatever you've done most recently. It's just going to be you responding to the universe being angry that you exist until you take the helm and start calling the shots. So once players recognize that's a possibility in the game, and that they have to deal with it, there's this very low pressure that's always sitting on the players, that they need to be making decisions to move the game forward. Otherwise, a whole, like, there's like this like in EverQuest or in WoW, when you go dive into a dungeon and you proc all the creatures and you create the train of creatures, like a monster train. I honestly don't know if WoW has monster trains anymore, but in EverQuest, way back in the day, it was a feature, not a flaw, of that MMORPG, that you would go into a dungeon, you would proc the biggest, baddest thing you could reach without dying while naked. Proc it and then run like hell, because when it started to chase you, it would cause all other creatures around it to proc as well. Like, basically, like, if you go down into a dungeon and you proc a CR15 dragon and then beat feet, that CR15 is the benchmark of everything below it that will proc with it. Oh, the dragon's pissed off at that thing, I should be pissed off at that thing too, and chase it. So you create these trains of monsters that would come up to the top of the dungeon entrance. So you'd have your guild fully equipped and buffed, knowing because you're on team chat, and the runner would call in saying, "I've got the train, I'm coming," and so you would then have to hold off enemy guilds from killing your assault team, and then killing and then waiting for the runner to show up, kill the runner, and then eat the train for themselves. So if you can keep control of the train and the dungeon entrance, then the entire dungeon would come to you in one mob. And then you can just do like flame wall, flame wall, flame wall, flame wall, summon, DPS, 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 and then you'd have all the characters hold a line behind that. So if they could kick through the walls and the summons and the DPS and get to the characters, then they have to deal with the tanks. Behind the tanks were the healers. Behind the healers were the DPS mages. And you'd have like this wall that all the monsters had to move through to get to you. And so like this is a tactical thing that you as a group had to be able to build together and then execute. And then once it's done, you can with all of your resource cached, then you had to have your defenders behind you to keep the other guilds from coming in and killing you while your resources were expended, so that you had time to gather all the resources and then everyone yeet out, so you could gather all your gear and go back to your home base and then divvy up all the treasure. So that's what EverQuest used to be, and that I don't honestly know if any games still do that or not. I know I never saw that in PoE, because it's all instances and very low counts. I never played WoW. I played WoW for like 10 minutes, and it's like, whatever. I couldn't get into it. But so I don't know if WoW still does trains like that or not. But that was such a special period of time in the MMORPG game world in the early 2000s. It was fun. But I think the point there was that. What was the point? Hold on. I know I was talking about that for something. Oh, yeah. Things collapsing on you. That's what we were talking about. In a campaign, that train is expressed as all the vendettas that NPCs have against your characters for the deeds that they've succeeded at during the course of their career. So as they gain levels, I've talked about plot threading in a previous episode, but once your campaign goes on, and like once you get into the second tier, you start accumulating a lot of vendettas, and so by the time you get to double digits, like 10th plus level, your character has enough notoriety that there are significant grudges, but you're continuing to do bigger and better things. Just dealing with grudges becomes part of the workflow. The players will recognize that if we don't keep moving forward, that train is going to catch up with us. And then we're not going to make any progress anymore, because now we're just dealing with the consequences that we've created for all the actions that we've taken over the past 10 levels. That's where that connection was. Thank you. Sometimes I don't remember why I do what I do. But yeah, so there's a plot train that's chasing after your character, and if they lollygag too much, it'll catch up to them and it'll kill them. So they have to keep moving forward with their own goals while keeping an eye on their six. And that's a well-built in my eyes, that's a well-built campaign. That's what I grew up on. That's how I cut my teeth on DMing and playing. I had a rotating group of me and two other DMs and an occasional third, or like sometimes I had like 4 to 6 players, and at least 2 of us were always DMs in that rotation. So we were always learning from each other, like learning how to create logic traps, or like how to bait people into plot progression. And they were amazing tools to develop and learn. And it's just reflexive now. I've been doing it for 36 years. I've been DMing now, and I played 3rd edition that way specifically for like 15, 16 of those years. So yeah, I've got a thought or two about stuff. What was my larger point? I knew I was talking about a larger point. The complexity of adventures. Right. So creating adventures is by far the most complicated endeavor for a role-playing game supplement, because it requires you to take all these logic issues into account while also building visual assets that also withhold logical scrutiny. Like if you're doing a campaign and you're just running through it and they're never going to see that content again because they've already modified it with their decisions. Now you're just adapting it. You don't have to really, like if it worked, it worked. And then if it didn't, oh well, let's just move on. I'll just improvise and adapt and move on. But if it's a published adventure, it has to work. And it has to hold up in a static display. I can't just run it once, adapt it as I go and be done. I have to present enough coherent information for another DM to do that for their own game. So if I build the adventure correctly, it provides enough narrative information, motivations, consequences, and points of location that the DM can themselves be spontaneous and reactive and lead them into, like, I've got 20 different adventure points in this adventure, and a DM that that reads through the content, knows how their players work, and is good at threading actions and consequences, can lead them out of order to different points inside of the adventure that will eventually just feed back into the larger narrative point. So designing all of that, both spatially through the plot and narratively, is a huge lift. Much more than just creating some simple physics on how space works in combat. Like this Spelljammer book is very easy in comparison to a full adventure. Fortunately, this supplement comes with a conversion guide for Light of Xeraxis, so you can learn how to use the tools that we provide in this book and how you can apply them to Light of Xeraxis as a proof of concept that the DM, after reading the supplement and looking at how Light of Xeraxis works, should be able to pick up these tools and then start modifying them and using them to integrate into their own game space, pardon the pun, to create their own space games. I'm going to come back and I'm going to have to work on this hand as a separate layer because it is fugly. So we're just making everything else here good to go, and then we'll make the hands the last thing since they're the ones that are the most broken. It's almost like she's giving the finger like she knows. But I've got about 23 minutes left today. Again, I'm still recovering from the leg infection that I had last week, so it knocked me out. I'm behind schedule now, behind my own arbitrarily created, self-inflicted and enforced schedule of publication. But if I don't build a timeline and try to stick to it, then I'm not building my production skills so that I can execute larger projects and be able to fulfill Kickstarter projects, which is the ultimate goal of this stream, is to be able to demonstrate the effort and work that goes into creating a product from idea to publish. And that is kind of what people are backing in Kickstarter projects, the dream of taking this idea and turning it into something completed. So I am running all these different types of channels on the stream to show all the different processes that go into creating a role-playing game or a supplement, so that when I start doing Kickstarters in 2025, I'll have a very extensive library here of demonstrating that I have the experience and the ability to be able to execute and complete Kickstarter projects, so that people will get an idea of what kind of stuff that I build. And if they jump on board, they can have access to a Kickstarter server, and we can hang out and talk shit while I build the game and do all the artwork for it. Have my patrons contribute ideas about like what would be a cool subject for this next picture that we're going to do, or like suggestions of like like heraldry and filigree and stuff like that. It's cool how many people have just organically found this channel so far, and that's going to continue to build over time. But being able to offer this specifically to patrons and backers of Kickstarters as a form of perk of, you get to be part of the process of actually building this thing, and and quizzing me on it, and throwing, challenging me with the playtest content that we'll offer the backers, and then having them hit me here while we're actually live on stream talking about the mechanics of the stuff, to be able to make sure that when it's finished, it's as absolutely airtight and just strong as it can be. So it can just be a great experience of creating the Kickstarter, in addition to everyone involved having something that they're going to want to use in their games in the future as well. So I like creating supplements that aren't just, like, I respect people that create classes and subclasses and fulfill that fantasy. And there's obviously a lot of interest in that in the community. And there's a lot of great people that I've made friends of that's their bread and butter, designing classes and stuff. But from my perspective, I want to build toolkits for the DM, so the DM can have bigger, better, more expansive, more informed, more thorough campaigns that allow their characters, that allow their players to do more stuff inside of the game. So I'm not highbrowing anybody that focuses on classes and subclasses. I mean, I'm doing a book on like martial powers to give martial characters additional options for them to be able to feel like they're not being shorthand, not getting the short end of the stick when they decide to be a fighter and that game gets up to 15th level and they're looking over at the cleric and the wizard that are conversing with gods right now. Like, what the fuck am I doing? I guess I'm just gonna crit an extra time this round. So like, it feels bad. It feels really bad. You don't really get to feel that unless you run multiple campaigns from level 1 to 20 to see that curve of power flip on the marshals around level 7. And so that's almost all of the works that I do are about opening up options for the DM to have more ability to say yes to the players on their team. And this Martial Powers book, I think, is like the one real component that I really need to have out there for the players to be like, I don't care what class I'm going to play, I am going to have a literal arm's length of options that I can pick every day or level that I go up to completely change my kit of abilities to adapt to the adventure. Because the one thing that martials aren't is that it's adaptable, and arguably they should be the most adaptable. So that's the philosophy behind all of that. That's my rant. Man, I'm already getting tired. And I have to keep shifting around. I have to keep shifting around in my chair like this, so that I can keep the full hour going without my leg getting all bound, my leg will start to burn if I put my foot on the ground for too long. So I have to keep adjusting my seat, and then I'll finish the stream, and then I'm going to go lay down with my leg up for a couple hours, So I could probably be on for an hour later on tonight for Eberron. I don't want to push myself, but that Eberron project is so important to me too. So I don't want to ignore it. But this is my top priority right now. I got to get this book published, so that when it's done, all the time that we spend on stream in the mornings doing Spelljammer stuff, we can start doing for Eberron instead. And that'll free up space for us to start doing a playtest for the Martial Powers book. Probably either Monday or Thursday night. And I'll probably start us maybe at 3rd level, in a raw dungeon crawl, like an endless like a 1st edition endless dungeon. I also want to do a hex crawl, so like 5th to 8th level. Do an outdoor hex crawl with drop-in dungeons, so we can see how the exploration and social mechanics in the Martial Powers book help during the hex crawl, and see how higher, like that mid tier of play, works with the combat options that we provided. And I've been playtesting it with my home table, but they're 19th level now. And I started the book when they were 12th, so I didn't start them over. We've got an ongoing campaign, but I can use my home table to introduce and use playtest content in the 3rd and 4th tier to get that high level of play, and I love it. I fucking love how Martial Powers plays at the high end. It really lets the Ranger and the Rogue have just a ton of options and a ton of kick to be able to do. I mean, Rogues are pretty impressive at high levels, but they're only skill oriented. Being able to layer in a bunch of other stuff is a really great way to be able to embellish and flesh out their kit of options. And the Ranger as well is just incredibly resourceful. It's super cool. Like our team would have been fucked if they didn't have the Ranger. It's so great. It is so great. So so we're kind of reverse engineering. Like we have the you'll see it tomorrow if anyone that shows up checks out the Path of the Giant conversion that we do. But we have everything in the playtest document already available for folks to look at through my Patreon. And you don't even have to be a member to look at it. That's just where I put it. And it's all fleshed out level 1 to 20. So you could pick it up and start using it at any level right now. So now that I'm pretty convinced that it works from during the 3rd and 4th tier as intended, I then get to look and see, does it feel good at low levels? Does it feel as good at low levels as it does at high levels? Because at high levels you have a lot of resources and a ton of options. So of course it feels good. You're basically operating like everyone's basically a half caster, but with 150 options. So if you're an actual half caster, like a Ranger or a Barbarian, a Ranger or a Paladin, you have your spell list plus all the powers. So you actually have 200 plus things that you can prepare or or learn to manifest how you want to express your character. But just rogues, fighters, barbarians, and monks, they still have 140 things themselves that they can pick from, like which is really robust. It's like an off-caster spell list, so it's incredibly deep. And what we're in the process right now of looking at what can we do to consolidate some of that stuff without making anything too immediately powerful. And I think the low end of game playtesting will help make sure that the mechanics that are in there and the boosts and exploits that they have access to will be meaningful and be worth the mana that they spend to be able to trigger the different effects. So we'll see. It's worth playtesting for a few months, and I am up to building a new team for some short-term fun. So it was not difficult for me to rally a team for the Spelljammer playtesting because it was ship mechanics, not character mechanics. So anyone could literally build any character that they wanted and use that character in the playtest, understanding that it was focused on Spelljammer adventuring. Just bring what you want. So a lot of people got to pick up, third-party classes that they would never have the opportunity to play in another campaign. It's like, what levels are we playing? Well, we started at 5th, and we went to 9th, and we went to 12th, and then we went to 17th, and that's when we finished it. So there was a lot of people had an opportunity to play test classes that they were interested in but never had a chance to play at these different tiers of play. So that they can assess, like, do they like the witch, or do they like the alternate fighter laser llama built or whatever. It's like, yeah, bring them. But this is the martial power system is going to require more faith in me than the advertisement. So I'm going to have to try to pull from a pool of people that are that are into the design idea in general itself, not so much like it's easy to bribe people. Hey, if you want to play this Eberron campaign, you can play any character that you want, just make him 8th level. Okay, that's an easy sell. It's like, hey, I need you to play a paladin. I need a paladin, a ranger, a rogue, and a cleric, and I need people to play test this adventure with me. It's like, that's you gotta have people that believe in you to do that. And a year ago, I might not have had enough support and interest from people in general to be able to pull that off for the Martial Powers book, but I think now I do. So that'll be coming after the Spelljammer book finishes. That's when we're going to start talking about starting up that playtest. So God, I am starting to just get exhausted. So I'm gonna have to pack it in and lay down here in just a few minutes. I still have 10 minutes left on the timer, but I don't think I'm gonna get there. Honestly, I'm happy with the sleeves. I have to do these sleeves and this filigree in here, her face and hair and hands. So I still have maybe three hours of work to do on these. But yeah, I'm wiped out. I gotta go. I gotta cash it in. So I appreciate people being here. Thanks so much for showing up. Thanks, Dreams. I really appreciate that. I'm really happy with it. There's going to be a space backwash here, like the astral stuff, and then she'll just be sitting, with her air bubble, keeping her safe from the void around her. But so there's supposed to be. I had to go to the hospital, so what can you do? But I am cashed, so this is taking out a lot more out of me than I thought it would. So this was a good test. I can do this. I can work for about an hour at a time right now. I might be on later on tonight to do more character art for the Eberron adventure, but I can't guarantee it. So yeah, man. Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. I'll keep you guys updated and let you know what's going on. And so I'm gonna bail. I might be back tonight, but I'll be back. I think I'll be back for an hour tomorrow morning to do more Spelljammer stuff, and then I'll be back at 1 o'clock tomorrow to do the Path of the Giant from Bigby's Glory of Giants. So I'll see you guys. I'm happy to be out, and I'm glad to be back on. It's going to take me a little while to ramp back up into full production, but I think by this weekend I should be back in full recovered. So thanks a lot, folks, for sticking around with me, and I'll see you all on the other side. Thanks a lot. Yeah, Path of the Giant. I'm going to build the power system for that. The Marshall. Hold on, I'll show you. Here you go to Phil Kearney, and go to my playlists. And there's the Marshall Powers mechanical design. Here's my playlist of 71 different episodes. So you can see here, I'll pause this. Down here, magic development. We're looking at magic paradigms and limiting powers. But as we get further down the list here, we're looking at subclasses, like right here, like a mechanic development, subclasses for the rogue. It goes off the page. Hold on. Like this one, barbarians. That was just general. The martial. Like this episode was us converting the mastermind archetype into the martial power system that we built. So we've been rebuilding all of the subclasses for all the martial classes to be uniquely for. So when I publish the book, it'll talk about a fighter, and it'll list off all the subclasses that are officially published for the fighter and what changes are made using the martial power system. And each subclass gets 10 specific bonus power list on top of the 16 that you just get to choose because you're gaining powers. So you'll end up with 26 total powers that are either specifically built for that archetype or just whatever you want to execute your own fulfillment, your own fantasy. So tomorrow at lunch we'll do the Path of the Giant from the Glory of the Giants. There's a lot of stuff I can say about that, but I'm going to save it till tomorrow and hope I have the strength to get through it. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited. I will see you guys on the other side. See you then. Thanks a lot.